The Phoenix wreck hurtles through space, its engines failing and shields cracked. Jalen Cross, a pilot just trying to survive, is about to make a decision that could change the galaxy forever. Chased by the Viren Syndicate, his ship is on the brink of destruction. But when two mysterious, silent children, who may not be children at all, take control of the ship, everything changes. With an ancient power in their hands, they're not just running, they're fighting back. But will it be enough to survive the relentless pursuit? The clock is ticking and Jalen must choose. Run and hope for the best, or make a stand and face the unknown. What will he decide when the truth of the twins and the galaxy comes to light? If you're new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Jalen Cross sat in the dimly lit corner of a docking bar on Vesta Station, staring into a drink that tasted like engine oil. His ship, the Phoenix wreck, was on its last legs. The rusted hulk of a vessel barely held together, groaning and creaking with every slight movement. It was the kind of ship that everyone else overlooked, but for Jalen, it was all he had left. He had been a pilot for years, but now he was barely scraping by. The life support system wheezed in the background, sounding like an old smoker struggling to breathe. The engine sputtered and made strange noises that set Jalen's teeth on edge. He couldn't remember the last time the fuel cells were full, but they were running on fumes now. And if things didn't change soon, Jalen would be left floating in space with nothing but the void for company. Worse still, he owed a lot of money to people who didn't hesitate to pull the trigger. He wasn't the type to beg, but he wasn't sure how long he could avoid paying them back. As he nursed his drink, lost in thought, a figure approached him from the shadows. The stranger was hooded, cloaked in a thick fabric that hid everything but their hands, which slid a small data chip across the table. It was the kind of quiet interaction that made Jalen's instincts flare with suspicion. "I need fast transport," the stranger's voice came, soft, neither male nor female, just strange. Jalen raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "No questions? No scans? No stops?" the stranger added, their tone like it had been rehearsed. Jalen took the chip, eyes narrowing. "Where to?" "Epsilon Drift, Outer Rim," the stranger replied, glancing over their shoulder as though checking for someone or something. "You leave within the hour." That raised another question. Epsilon Drift was a dangerous stretch of space, even more so if you weren't careful. There were rumors of pirates, rogue colonies, and who knew what else hiding in the shadows. And Jalen's ship wasn't exactly equipped for the kind of trouble that was likely waiting out there. But then the stranger slid another piece of information across the table: the payment. The amount was more than Jalen had seen in years, and it sent a thrill down his spine. His first instinct was to take the job, no questions asked. But then the warning from his gut kicked in. "What's the catch?" he asked, trying not to show too much interest. The stranger didn't answer immediately. Instead, they glanced over their shoulder again, checking the surroundings before whispering, "2 passengers, young, fragile. They must not be harmed." Jalen frowned. Smuggling kids? The idea didn't sit well with him. He had been involved in more shady jobs than he cared to admit. But children were different. He'd never done something like that before. But the money on the table was hard to ignore. The stranger didn't answer, but the brief look they gave Jalen told him everything he needed to know. It wasn't about the cargo. It was about the people who wanted it delivered, and if they were willing to pay that much, then it was serious business. "Fine," Jalen said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through his head. "I'll do it. But I want to know what I'm carrying." The stranger nodded once, sliding a small folder towards him. "No questions. No stops. Just get them there, safe and sound." Jalen's fingers lingered on the folder for a moment before he took it, standing up. "1 hour. I'll be ready." As the stranger disappeared into the crowd, Jalen couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had done plenty of jobs that didn't sit right with him, but this one felt different. The pay was too good. The request was too vague. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized that he didn't even know who he was working for. He'd never even gotten the stranger's name. He grabbed his jacket, heading for the hangar where the Phoenix wreck sat, waiting for its next ride into the unknown. The old ship was a familiar sight to him, dinged and battered, but it had always managed to get him where he needed to go. Tonight, however, it felt like it was already falling apart, a mere shell of its former self. Jalen ran his hand over the hull as he walked past, the metal cool under his fingers. Inside, the control panel flickered to life, showing him all the systems he had come to know too well. The rusted buttons, the old switches, the constant hum of something about to fail. Jalen sighed and started the pre-flight checklist. The ship didn't have much time left, and neither did he. The cargo bay was sealed tight. He had no idea what the stranger's cargo looked like, but he was about to find out. When he opened the door, his eyes were drawn to the two small figures sitting quietly on padded benches. The twins. They were about 8 years old, with pale skin and dark eyes that seemed to stare into him with an unsettling stillness. Both were bald, wearing matching silver cloaks and small headbands that hummed softly. Jalen's heart skipped a beat. The air around them seemed to shift, like something was out of place. He couldn't explain it, but there was something about them, something that made him uneasy. They didn't speak. They just sat there, hands folded in their laps, staring at him. "Everything okay in here?" Jalen asked, his voice breaking the silence. The one on the left tilted their head slightly, eyes narrowing. "You're scared," the voice echoed. Inside Jalen's head, though the child's mouth didn't move, Jalen's blood ran cold. He took a step back. "What the hell?" he muttered, his hand instinctively reaching for the blaster at his side. The other twin spoke, their voice the same as before, without sound. "We are not here to hurt you, Captain Cross." Jalen's jaw tightened. "Stay out of my head," he growled, trying to keep control. The twins merely stared, their calm expressions unchanged. "We can't help it," they said in unison. "But we try." Jalen turned away, closing the door behind him as he made his way to the cockpit. His hands were shaking. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he sure as hell knew he wasn't ready for whatever these kids were. As the ship began to lift off from Vesta's dusty docks, Jalen couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. The Phoenix wreck drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its rusty hull groaning with every movement. The engines hummed softly, barely maintaining their failing rhythm. Jalen Cross sat in the cockpit, eyes glued to the navigation screen. The stars stretched out before him, peaceful and unchanging, but something gnawed at him from the back of his mind. He had the strange feeling that he was being watched. It wasn't a feeling he was unfamiliar with. Pilots like him, those who traveled alone, learned to trust their instincts. But this was different. Something about the cargo, about the twins, was throwing him off. He glanced over his shoulder at the small cargo hold behind him, where the twins sat. The stillness in the room felt suffocating. They hadn't made a sound since they boarded, not a single movement or expression. They didn't even seem to breathe the same way. It was as if they weren't quite alive, not entirely human. And yet their presence weighed heavily on him, like they were connected to something greater than he could understand. The alarm on his console suddenly went off, slicing through the silence. Jalen's heart raced as he saw the radar. A small blip appeared in the distance. Something was approaching fast. He stared at the screen, frowning. It was too early for any kind of checkpoint. No one was supposed to be out here, not in this part of space, not without a good reason. "Damn it," he muttered, pushing the throttles forward. The Phoenix wreck shot forward, but the blip on the radar didn't move. It was still there, locked in at a steady distance behind him. It wasn't just any ship. This one was following. Jalen's fingers flew across the control panel, activating the military-grade sensors he had installed. He could hear the whirring of the systems as they engaged, pulling up data that normal sensors couldn't detect. That's when he saw it. A stealth ship, perfectly hidden in the blackness of space. He cursed under his breath. Whoever was on that ship wasn't just passing by, they were hunting. He flicked the switch to engage evasive maneuvers. The Phoenix wreck turned sharply, diving into the asteroid belt ahead, hoping to shake the pursuers. The ship's engines groaned in protest as they fought to maintain speed. He pushed them harder, weaving between the asteroids, praying the stealth ship would be forced to break off. But the other ship followed as though it knew exactly where Jalen was going. His stomach twisted. It was no longer a chase, it was a trap. Someone knew exactly where he was and they were closing in. Jalen's comm panel lit up with static, and then a voice came through, distorted but clear. "Turn over the cargo, human. You've been warned." Jalen's hands gripped the controls tighter, his knuckles turning white. His pulse was racing, but he didn't have time to think. He had no choice. He couldn't risk getting caught. Not now, not with the twins aboard. He hit the thrusters harder, sending the ship into a downward spiral, twisting and turning in an attempt to lose the tail. His sensors showed a clear path ahead, but the stealth ship didn't give up. It matched his every move, shadowing his every turn. The ship was fast, too fast for the Phoenix wreck. The twins' presence in the back of his mind, the strange sensation that had been lingering ever since they boarded, started to intensify. His thoughts swirled in a haze as the ship lurched again, narrowly avoiding an incoming asteroid. In the corner of his eye, he noticed the twins, still seated in the same position in the cargo hold. They hadn't moved, but somehow, it felt like they were aware of everything happening. Their silence had become more unnerving, their stillness almost unnatural. Jalen was starting to realize that they weren't just innocent passengers. He didn't know what they were, but whatever it was far beyond his understanding. "Who's chasing us?" Jalen muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone. He had a feeling they weren't just ordinary bounty hunters. The words from the stranger echoed in his mind, the kind of people who don't exist on official records. Whoever they were no ordinary hunters. This wasn't about money. This was something much bigger. As if on cue, the ship lurched again, throwing him off balance. He could feel the shockwave from the impact reverberating through the hull. The stealth ship had fired on him. A missile, he guessed, or maybe some kind of energy weapon. Whatever it was, it had hit hard. The controls flickered for a moment, but Jalen quickly regained his grip. He cursed again, pushing the ship into another evasive maneuver. But the Phoenix wreck wasn't built for this kind of fight. The engines struggled, and the ship groaned in protest. "Come on," Jalen muttered, sweat dripping down his face. He needed to lose them. He had to get out of this asteroid field and find a way to shake the tail. His comm panel lit up again, and this time the voice was clearer, colder. "This is your final warning. Turn over the cargo. If you refuse, we will not hesitate." A chill ran down Jalen's spine. These weren't just bounty hunters. They were part of something far darker. And if they got the twins, it would mean the end of everything. Jalen's eyes flicked toward the back of the ship, where the twins sat, unmoving. He wasn't sure what they were capable of, but they had to be the key to escaping this chase. If only he knew how to use their strange powers. Then the unexpected happened. The cargo bay door slid open with a soft hiss, and Jalen turned, barely having time to react. The twins were standing in the doorway, their heads tilted slightly. They didn't move like normal children. It was more like they were floating, their feet barely touching the floor. "We told you they were coming," one of them said, the voice not coming from their mouth but echoing directly in Jalen's mind. Jalen felt his heart skip a beat. "What are you doing?" he shouted, but it was too late. The other twin raised their hands, and in that moment, the ship shuddered violently. The engines roared to life, faster, stronger than Jalen could have ever imagined. The Phoenix wreck surged, forward, weaving through the asteroid field like it was a new ship entirely. The controls lit up in colors Jalen had never seen, and the ship's movements became as precise as a military starfighter. It was as if the ship was alive, guided by a force beyond his control. The twins' power was undeniable. Jalen felt his mouth go dry as the ship slipped through tight gaps in the asteroids, dodging incoming fire with a precision that was impossible for a ship this old. He glanced at the sensor screen, and the stealth ship was falling behind. The twins had done it. They had given him a chance to escape. But Jalen wasn't sure if it was a blessing or a curse. Whatever the twins were, they had just saved his life. And yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much darker. As the Phoenix wreck floated in the void of space, silent and still, Jalen's mind raced. He had survived for now, but he couldn't help but wonder. How long could he keep running? And what would happen when the Viren Syndicate finally caught up? The twins sat quietly in the cockpit, their faces calm and unreadable. Their eyes, though, were fixed on Jalen, as though they were waiting for him to make the next move. Jalen knew one thing for certain. He had no idea what he had gotten himself into. The Phoenix wreck drifted through the cold, empty space, the hum of the engines now a steady presence in the cockpit. Jalen Cross sat in the pilot's chair, hands still gripping the controls, though the chase had long been left behind. The twins sat across from him, silent as always. They hadn't moved since they saved the ship from the stealth ship, and now the entire cockpit felt strangely still, like it was holding its breath. Jalen's mind raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that the twins weren't just children. There was something deeper, something he couldn't quite place. Their calmness, the way they seemed to see right through him, unsettled him in a way that no other cargo had. He had never been a fan of mysteries, especially when it came to his life being on the line. "Why did you save us?" Jalen finally broke the silence, his voice hoarse. He glanced at the twins, his eyes searching their faces. But they were still, as if they weren't even fully present in the room. "Why did you help me?" One of the twins, Jalen couldn't tell which, tilted their head, the same way they had when they first spoke to him. "You need us," they said, their voice soft, but carrying an undertone that sent a chill down Jalen's spine. "We need you." Jalen frowned. That wasn't an answer. "What the hell does that mean?" He stood up, pacing the small cockpit. "I'm just trying to make it through this damn job, not get tangled up in whatever it is you're involved in." The other twin spoke, their voice the same as before, without sound, but it echoed clearly in Jalen's mind. "You are already tangled. There is no way out now." Jalen stopped, his heart racing. "Tangled? What are you talking about?" "We are not just passengers," the first twin said. "We are more than you think." Jalen's mind spun. He had heard of the term hypermind before, whispered in the darker corners of space stations and smuggler dens. It was an old legend, a myth even. The idea that there were beings, artificially enhanced minds so advanced they transcended human understanding. Jalen had thought it was nothing more than a story, a fancy term used to explain the unexplainable. But now, as the twins sat across from him, their presence heavy in the air, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were something far beyond human. He turned to them, his voice shaky. You're not just kids, are you?" The twins shared a long, silent glance before one of them nodded. "No," they whispered, their heads tilting slightly. "We are something else." Jalen's mind raced, but he could barely process what they were saying. "What do you mean, something else? Who are you really?" "We were created," the first twin said. "Not born. We were made once, a long time ago, and remade. But we were not meant to be. We are not meant to exist." Jalen's heart skipped a beat. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but they didn't make sense. "What are you talking about? What do you mean you were made?" The second twin spoke. "We are hyperminds," they said quietly. "Created to be more than human. More than any living thing. But we were hidden away, kept secret because we are dangerous. The Viren Syndicate wants us. They want to use us. They want to control us." Jalen blinked, struggling to comprehend. "Viren Syndicate? What do they want with you?" The first twin's face remained impassive, but their eyes burned with something far older than their appearance suggested. "They want to turn us into weapons. They want to use our minds to control the galaxy, to manipulate reality itself. They want to rewrite the future." Jalen stepped back, stunned. Wait, are you saying that the Viren Syndicate wants to turn you into, what, a weapon? Like some kind of super soldiers? No, the second twin said. We are more than soldiers. We are the architects of reality. The future is written in our minds, in our thoughts. We see what could be, what should be. Jalen shook his head, trying to make sense of their words. So you're telling me you can see the future? The twins nodded in unison. We can see threads of time, they said. We can see what was, what is, and what could be. The silence in the cockpit deepened as Jalen absorbed the weight of their words. His mind felt like it was on the verge of exploding with questions. Everything he thought he knew, everything he thought he understood about space, about life, was being shattered before him. You said you were made. Jalen said slowly, his voice uncertain. Who made you? And why? The twins looked at each other, their expressions unreadable. The first twin spoke softly. We were created by an ancient race, a race long forgotten by the galaxy. They had the power to shape minds, to alter reality itself, but their civilization fell. We were left behind, hidden from the universe, and now the Viren Syndicate seeks us out. Jalen's head swam. And you want me to help you, right? You need me to get you somewhere safe. Yes, the second twin replied. But more than that, you are the key. Jalen stared at them, confusion clouding his mind. What do you mean, I'm the key? We chose you, they said together, their voices echoing in his mind. You are the variable, the one who can break the chains that bind time. You are the one who can stop the Viren Syndicate. Jalen took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. This wasn't just a transport job anymore, this was something far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. The galaxy was at war, not just between factions, but between those who wanted to control time itself and those who wanted to break free. Jalen's hands shook as he sat back down in the pilot's seat. The twins weren't just children, and they weren't just cargo. They were the key to something much darker, much more dangerous. And now Jalen was stuck in the middle of it. He had a choice to make, and the weight of that choice hung heavy on him. Why me? He whispered. Why did you choose me? The first twin's eyes glowed faintly, as if they were seeing something far beyond the cockpit. You were chosen, long before you knew it, they said. Because you are unpredictable. You can break free from the threads of fate. Jalen's heart raced as the truth settled in. He wasn't just a pilot. He was the one who could change the future. But at what cost? The twins' voices echoed in his mind again, this time with a finality that sent a shiver down his spine. You have a choice to make, Captain Cross. Will you fight for the future? Or will you let the Syndicate control it all? Jalen didn't have the answer. Not yet. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't just running from a job anymore. He was running from something far bigger than he could ever have imagined, and the pursuit wasn't over. It had only just begun. The Phoenix wreck drifted in the dark void of space, its engines barely functioning. Jalen Cross sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the screen that flickered in front of him. His hands gripped the controls, but they felt heavy, like they belonged to someone else. The sound of the ship's tired engines was the only thing breaking, the silence that had filled the cockpit. The weight of what he had learned about the twins, about the Viren Syndicate, and about the fate of the galaxy pressed down on him. It was too much, too fast, and yet it was just the beginning. Behind him, the twins sat still as statues, their eyes closed, their hands resting calmly in their laps. They hadn't spoken much since their revelation. They didn't need to. Everything about them felt different, now. They weren't just children. They were something far more ancient, far more dangerous. Their presence had shifted the very air around them. Jalen could feel it. He wasn't sure what they had become, but he knew it wasn't good. We're close, one of the twins said suddenly, breaking the stillness. The voice echoed in Jalen's mind, like a whisper in the back of his skull. Jalen didn't respond right away. His eyes flicked to the sensor screen. The Viren ship was still behind them, but it was growing closer. The stealth ship had been tracking, them for hours now, and no matter how hard Jalen pushed the Phoenix wreck, it was clear they were getting closer to the inevitable. They were running out of options. "We don't have much time," Jalen said, more to himself than to the twins. He could feel the pressure building in his chest, his mind racing with thoughts of what would happen when the Viren ship caught up with them. What would happen to the twins? What would happen to him? "We know," the other twin responded. Their voice was calm, but there was an underlying tone of finality. "This is the end of the line, but we will not go quietly." Jalen's stomach churned. He didn't know what the twins meant by that, but he didn't want to find out. He had already seen their power. He had seen how they could control the ship, how they could bend reality itself, and he knew it was dangerous, but it was the only thing keeping them alive right now. He glanced at the comm panel. The Viren ship was closing in. The signal was stronger now, the telltale signs of weapons charging flickering on his screen. They were getting ready to strike. "We have to make a stand," Jalen muttered, his fingers moving to the controls. He didn't know what that meant, but he had no other choice. The twins remained still. The room seemed to get colder, darker. It felt like the walls were closing in, like time itself was slowing down. "They're going to attack us," Jalen said, his voice tight. He was trying to prepare himself, but deep down he was terrified. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even close. He was just a pilot trying to survive. And now he was facing an enemy far bigger than he could have ever imagined. "Yes," the first twin said softly. "But we can fight back." Jalen turned in his seat, his eyes locking with theirs. "How? What can we do? We're outgunned, outnumbered. I'm not some kind of soldier." "You are more than that," the second twin said, their eyes glowing faintly. "You have something they don't. You can bend the rules." Jalen shook his head. "I don't know how to do that. I'm just trying to keep the ship from falling apart." The first twin smiled. "That's enough. The key is in you. You just have to choose." Jalen felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "Choose what?" "Choose to fight." The warning came too late. Jalen didn't need the sensor screen to know that the Viron ship had just locked onto them. A loud explosion rattled the hull, and Jalen's grip tightened on the controls. He slammed his fist down on the thrusters, sending the Phoenix wreck into a violent turn, but it was already too late. The Viron ship fired again, this time striking the Phoenix wreck's shields. Sparks flew from the dashboard and alarms blared throughout the ship. Jalen swore under his breath. The shields were failing. They couldn't take another hit. He needed a miracle, and fast. "Now," the second twin said, their voice echoing in Jalen's mind. "It's time." Before Jalen could even respond, the twins stood in unison, their eyes glowing brighter now. The entire ship seemed to vibrate as the air shifted. It was as if the very fabric of reality itself was bending around them. Jalen's heart pounded in his chest as the ship's controls surged to life, responding to the twins' silent command. The ship's systems flickered, with colors Jalen had never seen before. The engines roared louder, stronger than they ever had. "Hold on," Jalen shouted, barely able to keep his hand steady on the controls. The Phoenix wreck surged forward, like a creature reborn, faster than it had any right to be. It was as if the ship itself was alive, pulling away from the Viron ship's pursuit. The Viron ship fired again, but this time the blast missed them completely. The Phoenix wreck twisted and darted through space with an agility that no one could have anticipated, dodging missiles and gunfire with ease. It was as if the laws of physics no longer applied. The twins' power was guiding the ship, bending space itself to their will. Jalen couldn't keep up. He didn't understand how they were doing it, but he didn't care. He just held on, his heart racing with adrenaline. "Where are we going?" Jalen asked, his voice strained. The Viren ship was still behind them, but it was losing ground. He could barely keep his eyes on the controls, his hands trembling. "We're not running," the first twin said, their voice calm and sure. "We're making a stand." The second twin nodded. "This is the moment." Jalen's stomach twisted. He didn't know what they meant by that, but he had a feeling it wasn't good. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. They were about to face something far bigger than just the Viron Syndicate. This was a battle for the future. And Jalen had no idea if they would make it out alive. But as the Phoenix wreck hurtled toward the unknown, Jalen knew one thing, for sure. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. This was about changing everything. The fight was just beginning.